Hello, Bigger Pockets community. Andrew Cushman here. We are live on a Friday afternoon from warm and sunny Southern California. I am here to answer any questions that you have on rentals or apartments or syndication. For those of you who haven't met me or don't know who I am, go back to episodes, Bigger Pockets episodes 179 and 270. But the short version is, used to be a chemical engineer, quit that to go into flipping houses in Southern California, did that for 4 years full time. Then went in 2011. We bought an apartment complex, 92 units on the other side of the country in Macon, Georgia. That was a mostly vacant mess, and we turned that around and then have been doing apartments full time ever since. We've done about 2,100 units all in Texas, Georgia, and Florida. And so I am here to let you ask any questions regarding any of that, and hopefully you can benefit from my experience. So when you do post a question, go ahead, just post it in the feed on Instagram or on Facebook. And we'll kind of run a little competition here. All right, Magda Lacey already says, hello, Andrew from Chicago on Facebook. So thank you for jumping in. As I was going to say, Lacey, Magda's already ahead of everybody. When you do post or say hi or post your question, let us know where you're coming in from. Love hearing from people around the country and around the world. And Sammy's in cold as New York. Yeah, I grew up in New England, and I've been watching your guys' winter, and it's been a heck of a winter. If it makes you feel any better, it's sunny and 72 here right now. But anyways, let post where you're coming in from, and in your questions, and we'll go back and forth between Instagram and Facebook. Hey, John on Facebook from Jersey, and we'll answer your questions. So one quick thing before we get started is, as you guys are out looking at rental properties, whether it's single family or apartments or anything, keep an eye on interest rates, because interest rates have been, hey there, Davenport, Iowa, that's a new one, haven't seen it. Interest rates have been going through the roof for the last couple of months, but really even just in the last 10 days, right? And you say, well, wait a second, I thought interest rates are low. Historically, in the big picture, interest rates are still definitely low. Oh, we have somebody from the Vanuatu in the South Pacific. Wow, yeah, you are on my list to visit. I really want to go there. And I'm probably saying that island, saying the name wrong. I apologize. So back to interest rates. One of the things that has been really supporting performance of rental real estate in this past year is that rates have been so low that it's been easier to make properties make sense even with the higher pricing. And back in August, the 10-year Treasury, which is the benchmark that mortgages tend to be based off of, the 10-year Treasury was at 0.51. That was the low that we hit in August. And then back at the beginning of this year, 2021, it had steadily risen up to 0.91, right? So, not a huge increase in terms of percentage, but that's almost a doubling, right? And then you look at, well, okay, so what has happened in just January and February? Well, as of today, we are at 1.35, right? And I think just a week ago, we were at 1.2. Now, are these rates high enough to collapse the real estate market or anything like that? Absolutely not. Again, grand scheme of things, they're still very, very low. However, if you are looking at a duplex or a fourplex or 100 unit, whatever size is, and you're using interest rates that were quoted to you a couple of weeks ago, even just 2 weeks ago, hello to Vermont, then those interest rates are probably out of date, right? So really when you're underwriting your deals, whether it's a single family or 100 units, make absolute certain that number one, that you are using today's interest rate quotes and estimates, and factor in the likelihood that rates are going to go up between today and closing. So let's say today you get quoted, with the 10-year at 1.35. Let's say you get quoted a 4% interest rate, underwrite at maybe 4.2, right? Just because it looks like rates are probably on the 10-year may continue to shoot up. And my guess, and it really is just a guess, looking at charts, is it may go up to 1.5. And that means mortgages are going to start creeping up as well. So keep that in mind. Don't be blindsided by that, because sudden changes in interest rates is probably one of the biggest things that blows up people's deals, and I don't want that to happen to you. So pay real close attention to the interest rate. So, all right, we've got lots of questions. Let me see here. Hello, Tina, in Phoenix on Facebook, and let me see here. Lots. All right. I think we'll start with. All right. Since Magda I'm tongue tied this week. Haven't slept a whole lot. All right. Magda was the first person to say hello on Facebook, so we're gonna go with her question. And she says, "How do you find funding when you have challenges? Low credit, no private lenders, very low income." I don't want to gloss over it. That does make things a little bit more challenging, but it's certainly not as big of a hurdle as it seems when you're in that position trying to figure it out, right? Number one, so if you said low credit, the good news is if you're looking at commercial property, so 5 units and bigger, they don't really look so much at your credit. They're going to look more at the property itself. But let's say you're looking at a duplex or a fourplex or something along those lines. And you're right, credit factors more into that. The key is to go network like crazy and meet somebody that you can partner with who does have the good credit, right? And there are people out there, and we call them balance sheet sponsors, where they earn their living just by lending their good credit and their good balance sheet to other people who don't have it, so Magda, you bring the good deal. You go out and find it. You get all the contractor stuff lined up. You do the work to do the acquisition. You do the renovation. You do all of the legwork and all the work, and your partner, this future partner, they bring in the good credit, maybe they bring in the money, and they make it possible for you to get that loan. So definitely do that. And then the other is, how do you actually just get the cash? It's the same thing. Is finding, bigger pockets is a massive community, and real estate meetups are great and all that, but especially in the time of COVID, probably the easiest thing for you to do is get into the Bigger Pockets forums and just start asking questions, answering questions, connecting with people, everything you can do, and tell everybody what you're working on, right? So, if you're saying, hey, let's just say you're going for duplexes and fourplexes, and you're, I think you said you were in Chicago, right? Let me check up here. Yes, for Chicago. So start looking at tons of duplexes and fourplexes in Chicago, and most of the ones you're going to look at are going to be terrible, but eventually you'll come across a good deal. When you start getting those good deals, that's when again, start building relationships while you're looking at those good deals. And everybody, this applies to, again, whether you're doing a duplex or 100 units. Tell people what you're doing. Oh man, I'm looking at all these duplexes and fourplexes in Chicago, and I'm looking at them in these great neighborhoods, and I can get a great great rent, and pays the mortgage plus, and it gives us all this great cash flow, and keep talking about it, get people excited, and then when you find a deal, I can tell you, in today's environment, if you find a truly great deal and you've networked enough, you will get that deal funded, right? In today's market, the problem is not that there's not enough money. The problem is there's not enough good deals. So if you don't have the credit, you don't have the cash, that's okay. If you find a truly great deal, you'll be able to find someone to fund it for you. And I can tell you, when we did our first apartment complex, like I said, it was 92 units, mostly vacant, other side of the country. Now, we didn't have the money for that, and it took me 6 months to raise it because we didn't know enough people that had the money either. It was probably one of the most stressful 6 months of my life. That's why I'm half gray now. Is probably from that deal. But we got there, and now we've done 2,100. So it is, so Magda, really, you can do it. If you find a great deal, a truly great deal, you'll get it funded. So go look at deals. Go network, talk to people, and you'll eventually put the two together, and then you'll get started. So good question, and good luck to you. Let's see. All right. Let me see. Maybe we'll go. We got a bunch of questions to catch up on Instagram here. Okay. This is a good follow-up question. Eric Cloney asks on Instagram, what numbers do I need to run to know that I actually have a, quote, good deal? So So it depends on what you're looking to actually do with the property, but for the sake of this conversation, let's assume you're going to make it a rental, right? And so to keep it simple, without diving into spreadsheets and all kinds of craziness, is you want to make sure that the rent that you'll be able to charge, the rent that you'll be bringing in, will cover the mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs, and you're going to need to, in the beginning, you're probably going to need to estimate what what repairs are going to be. So maybe you say, okay, repairs might add up to, $100 a month, or something like that, right? Excuse me. And then you're also going to allow for vacancy, and that's going to depend on the market, right? So in Southern California, you can almost factor in no vacancy because there's such high demand as long as you're priced well. Well, in other, hey, I just saw someone post about multifamily accelerator. Thank you. Can't quite see what your logo is. But anyways, so you're going to want to make sure that you cover all of that. And candidly, there are some great calculators and bigger pockets that you can actually use to run all of those numbers. So a good deal is a deal that covers all the expenses and then provides the cash flow that provides additional cash flow, right? And then there's also, to be a little bit more esoteric, there's, as one of my mentors used to say, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? If your rental is going to make $100 a month in net cash flow, but you've got to spend all kinds of time on it, and constant repairs and headaches and bad tenants, that might not be worth it, right? But if you can get a property that puts $300 a month or even $100 a month in your bank account, and you have to do almost nothing, you can hand it off to a property manager and just kind of manage them, it doesn't take any time, then that might be a good deal, right? But as far as in the terms of partnering with people, a good deal is a deal where there's minimal downside risk, right? Number one thing with most investors, they want to make sure they're not going to lose money. Two, the returns are high enough to what they're looking for, and you need to get to know your investors. Are they looking for 8% or are they looking for 12? And then three, most investors really, the good ones know that they're betting on the deal, but they're really betting on you, right? An operator is the most important piece of the puzzle. A good operator can turn around a bad deal and make it good, but a bad operator can take an awesome deal and run it into the ground. So those are some of the things that as to how I would say is something a good deal. And without diving into spreadsheets, because it really does depend on the market and the type of deal, and again what you're looking for. The best deal is one that helps move you towards your financial goals, really, at the end of the day. Let's see. All right, we got lots of questions. Let me see here. Let's see. Sina Angelis on Facebook says, I have the credit and the cash, but no income at the moment. So maybe you partner up with Magna, and Magna says she has a flip in Chicago. So maybe that flip, Sina, maybe you have enough cash where this is a perfect example, right? Where you guys are both on this live stream, and you can connect. Maybe you can connect, message each other on Facebook afterwards. Sina, maybe you have enough cash to take care of the flip, and then when the flip sells, you do a profit share or something like that, and off you go. So that's one of the benefits of being in bigger pockets and doing this kind of stuff. So good. I love seeing that. I love to see people make connections right here live on Bigger Pockets. So all right, let me take a breather and see if I can scroll back here and catch up on some of these questions. All right, let me see here. This comes up a lot. Marie Dwight on Facebook asks, I began wholesaling and want to create an LLC. What can I write off? Software, computer, gas, miles, no deal yet, but a few good leads. I'll hang in there on looking for the deal. Seems like the volume of potential deals and good leads is increasing lately, so that's a good sign. And as far as the LLC, basically you can write off as an expense anything that is a direct cost of your real estate business. So yeah, if those miles are because you're driving around looking at properties or driving for dollars, absolutely you can write that off. Let's see, software. Yeah, if you buy some software or apps to like, I've heard Deal Machine advertised on Bigger Pockets, and there's a handful of other apps out there where you can just plug in the address and it pulls up information. Anything like that that is directly related to your business is an expense to the LLC, and therefore it reduces your taxes. So yes, the answer is you can do that. And it's definitely tax advantage to do so. So, all right, Rufus98 on Instagram asks, any tips for out-of-state investing? Yeah, I can definitely speak to that because I live in a state where it's really difficult to invest for cash flow. And so one, I highly recommend David Green's book, Long Distance Real Estate Investing. It's geared towards single family and like duplexes and fourplexes, but the principles apply to any size property, right? So, how do we successfully do large deals in, on the other side of the country? Well, we've got good brokers. We have great management, local management. We now have actually an acquisitions person who's based in that area. Now, we didn't always have that, but we always had people that we could reach out to, say, hey, could you drive by, take some pictures or do something like that? And even if you don't know anybody, you can go on Fiverr, right? Let's say, I don't know what state you're in, but if let's say you're in California and you're looking in Columbus, Ohio, you can go on Fiverr and say, hey, I'll pay you $50 if you can drive to this property and just take a bunch of pictures and report back to me, right? So it's about getting to know the market in the other state and building a team that can do things for you there locally. And actually, I would say that investing out of your area in many cases is an advantage. And let me explain why. It is very tempting if you have, and thank you for all of the hearts on Instagram. We just dove right in. I forgot to mention that. Please, hit the hearts, and then on Facebook, do the likes, so that we know that we're hopefully providing value and information, and that feeds in the algorithms and keeps me from getting fired from Bigger Pockets. So I definitely appreciate that. But back to your question about investing out of state, I think it's actually an advantage to invest out of state because, number one, you can go pick a market where you can get the best returns, right? You don't have to be lucky to live in just the right market. You can go say, I can get the best returns here. I'm going to go invest here. The other thing is when you own property in your backyard, it can be very tempting to spend too much of your time doing low value work. What do I mean by that? Well, tenant calls and the toilet's leaking. All right, well, I'll go over and take a look at it. Or, the water heater's acting funny. Okay, well, I'll go over and take a look at it, right? No, you should have a handyman or a maintenance person or a contractor, somebody else do that. You are an investor. You should be looking for deals, talking with, money partners, operational partners, all of that. You shouldn't be visiting the property every other day to do that minor stuff. That should be somebody else on your team doing that. You are the investor. So in that sense, I think it's an advantage because, I can't tell you how many times that, something happens at a property where if it was the property's in Georgia, but if it was 10 minutes from where I live, I'd probably just run over there. And I'd end up spending way more time than I ever should at the property. Whereas now I have to be very strategic about going to Georgia and planning out when I'm going to be there, what I'm going to accomplish, who I'm going to meet with, and I find that actually makes me a more effective investor. So go read David's book, and then put those principles into practice. So, all right, hello, Tampa, Florida, and Big Carrie. I see you put on there. I can't get a response, so the questions are flying by. So if you can repost your question, I'll try to catch it. All right, Cal Holmes Jones asks, "How is the Macon, Georgia market?" Macon holds a special place in my heart because that is the location of our very first apartment complex. That's the one that got us in business. Overall, though, Macon these days is not a place I prefer to invest. Macon is losing population. Now, the northwest part of Macon is still fairly strong. That's kind of where the new retail and people are going. But as a whole, the Macon is losing people. And when you're looking at holding rental property long term, you want to be in a place that is gaining population, because that's going to keep your occupancy up. It's going to drive rental rates up, etc. So these days, unfortunately, I can't say I'm a big fan of Macon. Like I said, I have a warm feeling towards Macon because it got me started, and we do still own a couple of properties there, but that are doing just fine. But we really try not to actually buy anything more there because population loss, and it's also not that strong of rent growth. So, all right, what's the name of the book? Pappy asks. It's David Green's Long Distance Real Estate Investing. Pista asks on Instagram, how do you feel about properties that have septic tanks? Depends on your market, but I prefer to stay away from them. But that's not a deal killer. If you're looking at a duplex, some parts of the country are mostly septic tanks, right? Just make sure that you have it inspected before you close the deal, because repairing a septic tank can be a big cost. It can be I actually know of somebody who had a house one time and ended up being so actually, let me step back a bit. This is a really interesting story, expensive story. So an investor I know got a house with a septic tank, and after closing found out that the septic tank didn't work very well and needed to be repaired. Okay, $10,000 to $15,000 repair job. Ooh, ouch, that's expensive. Not even the beginning of it. Come to find out, the city that this property was in had passed a law that septic tanks were no longer allowed to be repaired. Well, why would they do that? Well, because they didn't want anyone to have septic tanks anymore. They wanted to get everybody on city sewer. Well, guess where the city sewer was? Under the main street out in front of the house. So this investor ended up having to shut down one of the main streets through town and pay to have it dug up so that he could connect the house to the sewer line under the street. Grand total cost was about $60,000. So the moral of the story with your septic tanks is, number one, have them inspected to make sure that you're not going to have to fork out a bunch of money for repairs. And two, go check and make sure that whatever city or municipality you're in hasn't passed any kind of laws that's going to make you repairing it problematic or ridiculously expensive, right? So, and that kind of stuff really applies if you're looking at, and I know we talk mostly about houses and apartments here, but mobile home parks, fit into the same category. We control a small one as well. And we ran into that where we had two mobile homes, one burned down and that damaged the other. And then the city said, oh, we're not going to let you replace those. We don't want mobile homes in the city anymore. And it took 6 months to finally get permission just to replace the two that burned down. So, anytime you're dealing with kind of, I call it legacy stuff, or old stuff that's not around anymore, like typically septic tanks aren't put in, and older mobile home communities, check your local rules and regulations to make sure that you're not going to get tripped up by something unexpected, and that could be very expensive. So all right, let's see, let's jump over to a question on Facebook. Andrew Frischman, he's a veterinarian, says, is there a benchmark as when you look at a demographic regarding the percentage of population which rents versus owns? We do look at that, but we don't really have a benchmark. What we found to be far more important is the median income, and then how affordable your rent is to the median person in that area, right? So, for example, affordable is defined as someone has to use 30% or less of their gross income to be able to afford your rent. So let's just say the rent is $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year. Let's just say you want the person to only have to spend 25% of their income. That means you want the median income in the area to be 48,000, right? So that someone making 48,000 can only spend 25% of their gross income to be able to rent your property, right? Because that means if they get a flat tire or something like that, they can still pay rent, right? They're not living right on the edge. So you want your rentals to be affordable. So we don't really have benchmarks as far as the percent that is rent versus own. But what we found is much more important is the median income compared to your rent. And then one final thing on percent of population which rents versus owned. What I would be a little careful of is the percentage of rental properties in the area, right? There are some neighborhoods, and I can think of a few, like in Arizona, around Phoenix, where something like 70% of the properties are rentals. Well, that means you've got a lot of competition, and if the market ever softens, there's a lot. You may see some rent drops. You've got a lot of competition now. Generally speaking, Arizona is a great market right now. So I'm not really saying anything negative about Arizona, but I would definitely look at what is the total rental stock and what your competition is. So, all right, so good questions. Let's see here. Let's catch up on Instagram. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm not. I don't know if I can pronounce this one, but I'll just on Instagram here. We have a question. How can I open LLC and buy a home under LLC? Been new company without history. If you're just looking at buying a single family, yeah, you're right. You're not going to be able to do that because if you're going for a standard residential mortgage, the mortgage isn't. You're going to have to take that property out of the LLC and get the mortgage in your name. So you're not going to be able to do that anyway. You can many cases get a mortgage in your name and then transfer the property to an LLC. But yeah, you're not going to be able to, in my experience, you're not going to be able to just create an LLC and buy a house in it. At least not with a traditional loan. You could do it with private money. You can do it with money partners, hard money, stuff like that. But if you're looking at a bank loan, you're not going to be able to do that. All right, let's keep on rolling here. And you guys, remember, let us know where you're coming in from. And I think Vanuatu is going to probably be the farthest away here this time around. That's pretty awesome. South Pacific. Oh, good question here. All right, Captain Trace on Instagram, and looks like you have a beautiful husky there on your profile pic. But he asks, where do you find that info about gaining and losing population? There's a handful of places you can do that. One, there is a awesome map on, I believe if you Google the Harvard Center for Joint Housing Studies, they have a map of the entire United States. It's broken out by county and it's color coded. And so you can just in one fell swoop, the entire country, you can see which counties are gaining population at what rate, and then which counties are losing population. So that's a great resource if you're just trying to find overall areas that are gaining population. And then if you've got so let's say you pull up that map, right, and you identify, I don't know, a handful of cities in Idaho and Utah that you're interested in because they're gaining population. Then what you can do is you can go to, there's a website called I think it's worldpopulation.com. And you can enter in a county or a city there, and they will give you the population growth history, both in table format and in terms of chart, right? So those are two resources that I like, and they're free. So you don't have to worry about paying for them. And then in addition to that, just Google, right? Let's say you're interested in Boise, Idaho. Say, Boise, Idaho population growth. Put that into Google and all kinds of stuff will come up. So my strategy would be go to the Harvard Center for Joint Housing Studies, pull up that map and say, okay, these are the areas and counties that based on population growth could be really good. And then take the cities in those areas and start Googling them with the words population growth, and you're going to get all the information that you need. So really good question. Thanks for bringing that up. And good news is that stuff is all free. So, all right, let me take a sip of liquid energy, and we'll pick some more questions. All right. Pappy on Instagram asks, what are some contingencies that you usually include in a contract offer? Uh, the market is so competitive these days that we typically don't have any contingencies. So, and again, it depends on how much due diligence we've been able to do on the property in advance, and also how well we know the market, right? So, and it also depends on what kind of price you're getting. So Pappy, like if you've got a house that you're buying, or let's say you got a duplex, and you know that the after repair value, once you clean it up, let's say it's worth 200, and you got to put 20,000 into it, and you got an awesome deal, and you're buying it for 110. I wouldn't have any contingencies. I'm like, you know what? Because even if I find an extra $5,000 in repairs that we didn't know about, I've got such a big margin on this deal that it's going to be fine. But if you're buying something and your margins are a little bit tighter, or it was kind of more competitive, then you can have financing contingency, which means if you don't get the loan, you don't get approved for the loan that you're trying to get, then you get to get your deposit back and get out of the deal. That's probably the most common one. If you're looking at commercial properties, a big one that we definitely have in every contract is environmental, and that's basically you want to make sure that you don't have something toxic on your property or nearby, because if you do and the EPA finds out, they're coming to you to get it fixed, even if it wasn't your fault. It just happens to be there, right? So the way to insure against that is to get what's called a phase 1 environmental study. It's not something you usually do for duplexes and fourplexes, but it is something you do for commercial size properties. And so that is a contingency we always have, is that we get that the environmental report comes back clean. Also, clear title is another contingency that we always have. And basically what that means is that when we get into the transaction, that the seller is able to deliver the property to us free and clear of defects in liens as far as title is concerned. So what that means is when you take over, there's not a tax lien attached to it, or there's not some other cloud on title or something that makes it so you can't remarket it, right? So the two contingencies that we always have are environmental and title, and then after that, it's just a matter of how good of a deal you're getting, how much margin do you have to absorb stuff, and how comfortable are you with the deal and the market. Because the fewer contingencies that you put in your offer, the more competitive that offer is. And it's not always about price. So if you make an offer that has no appraisal, no inspections, no loan contingency, close in 10 days, somebody else might be 10 grand higher than you, but your offer is still really competitive because it's a sure thing, and you're also going to close quickly and way less hassle and all that. So I hope that kind of answers the questions a little bit. Depends, on your market, size of deal, and what you're comfortable with. But that's how we approach that. All right, let's see here. I forgot my things. Get a little sip here, and then. All right, Pista, glad to be able to help you with the septic tank question. That's always a fun one. So my one of the things I like to say when looking at properties that are older or rougher compared to newer ones that don't have those, is what I like to say is keep in mind that the grass is always greener over the septic tank, right? So keep that in mind. All right. Oh yeah, good question. K13 Evans from the suburbs of Chicago on Instagram says, "Can you discuss the moratorium?" Absolutely. Let's do that. So the eviction moratoriums, that's a question that we frequently get from our investors is, hey, are you concerned about the moratoriums? How are they affecting things? All that. And it's a very legitimate question and concern. At the end of the day, so far, the moratorium really has not been as big of a problem as it would seem on the surface. And the reason is it's not, people misunderstand it. It's not a complete ban on evictions, right? We just recently completed a handful of evictions at our properties in Georgia, and also we just got a couple done at our property in Florida. You'll say, well, wait a second, how can you do that with a moratorium? The moratorium, it doesn't ban evictions. It just it provides protection for people who have been affected by COVID, right? And so if someone stops paying rent, then and they don't want to get evicted, they have to go through a process that the CDC has set up that certifies that they can't pay their rent because of COVID-19. And if somebody doesn't go through that process or gets denied the certification as a landlord, you are allowed to evict that person. And so out of, I don't know, a couple thousand units, we've probably only had I could probably count on one hand the number of people who've actually gone through the process and gotten certified and were like, hey, I can't pay rent because of COVID-19. And candidly, if we've got somebody who truly has been affected by COVID-19 and they're otherwise a good tenant and they are trying to work with us as best as they can, we're not going to evict them anyway, right? We're only going to evict the people who ignore us and just are trying to work the system and maybe just otherwise aren't good tenants and just don't want to pay rent. They're trying to just use this as an excuse. Those are the people that we would evict, and those are the people that aren't protected by the moratorium. So the moratorium is actually designed to protect the people who truly are affected and go through the steps to prove that. And that's actually, in our experience, has been a pretty limited number of people. Now, with that said, the moratoriums, all this stuff, it has slowed down the process. So whereas it might have taken 45 days or whatever to get an eviction done, now it's taking 90 or 100. And so delinquency has crept up at a lot of properties. Delinquency meaning, people that owe more than the current month rent. But it has not been a huge issue. And candidly, as it looks like, COVID case rates are dramatically falling across the country right now. We're having some trouble getting the vaccines out, but we do at least have vaccines. And a lot of the stimulus money that's been pumped into the system, for the last year is sitting in people's savings account waiting to be deployed. So we're probably going to have a pretty big burst of growth coming, maybe the second half of this year, assuming the pandemic doesn't take some kind of nasty turn. So, short term, the moratorium, it definitely bears watching. It's something to work with, but definitely don't let it hold you back from investing, because number one, the moratorium is not as bad as it seems from a landlord's perspective, and two, it's short term. Right? If you're looking at holding the property 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, this is a blip on the radar. It'll be over before you know it, and you'll be glad that you got a great deal on a property today, because there's some people who are afraid to act, and you went out and did. So great question, though, because that's been on so many people's minds, and thank you for the hearts. So all right, let's keep on rolling. All right, I'll give a shout out to Curd Contracting on Instagram. It says, hey, I'm a contractor from New Jersey, New York City. Anyone want to partner up? Hit me up. Again, BiggerPockets, great place to find partners. Look for people who have the skills and strengths that either you don't have or that you don't want to do, right? I would hate to be a contractor. I'm lucky to use a hammer, right, properly. So that is, that's a skill. I have great renovation coordinators that take care of that stuff, because I can't do it, right? I'm great at analyzing properties and deals, but not when it comes to actually the physical work. All right, we had someone else said, yes, please discuss the moratorium. So glad we did that. Let me see here. Oh, hey, Mary from Spain. Heal and be healthy from Utah. Hello. I was actually out in your area last weekend enjoying some of the wonderful deep snow that you've been getting. You've been getting a ton of it. All right. Elian Gonzalez from Miami. SMC Johansson from Orlando. And we got Missouri. All right. Let's go. Man, we got all over the country. All right. Let's let's go for some more questions here. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything on Facebook. Holly Barrett asked, could you or someone on BP do a class on using the Burr calculator? I'm I think Brandon has actually done a handful of webinars on that. So I would just search around, and you know what? If you don't find one, I'd reach out to BP and say, hey, can you have Brandon do a webinar on it? So put that guy to work. He's chilling in Maui. Get him to do some more work for Bigger Pockets. All right. All right, Faustino318 says, hey, it says, hello from New Jersey. Where do you see the market going for investing in multifamilies when the moratorium ends? Candidly, the market for rentals and multifamily looks really, really strong. One of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot is, we already had a housing shortage before we got into the pandemic, and the pandemic has exacerbated that. And what do I mean? Well, a lot of future development or new units has either been eliminated or put on hold. So we weren't building enough housing to begin with. Now we're building even less, right? So when you get a housing shortage, that means people are fighting over units, which means low vacancy and increasing rents. Second of all, we had a recession. We're likely going into an expansion. There's a ton of stimulus money that's already just waiting in the wings to be deployed. That's likely to put downward pressure on unemployment, upward pressure on rents, and then also with all this money printing worldwide, pretty much everybody is expecting inflation. And in an inflationary environment, you want to have hard assets like gold and real estate and and those kind of things, commodities. And so when you buy a piece of real estate and you get a loan on it, that loan is fixed. And so as inflation continues, that you're paying back that debt with dollars that are worth less and less, right? So you build wealth by debt destruction, meaning you're paying back that debt with dollars that are worth less and less, but your property is going up and your rents are going up and the value is going up. So, I see real estate and especially multifamily doing really, really well long term. There may be some blips and dips along the way, but as long as you're looking out 3, 5, 10 years or more, I think it's definitely the place to be. So, all right, keep on rolling here. Let me see here. A couple people asked, what's the website again? 3 people in a row. I'm not sure which website where you're asking about. If it could be when I was talking about the website that has the map of the U.S. with the growth, I don't remember the actual website, but if you Google the Harvard Center for Joint Housing Studies, you'll find their site that has that map. I need to just go ahead and memorize that URL so I can give it out to people. But sorry about that. But if you Google that, you will find it. All right. Oh, thank you. Hello, Kia. She posted it on here for us. And then SMC Johansson says no worldpopulation.com website. That might not be the exact URL, but it is definitely there because we use it all the time. So I think it's worldpopulation.com. But if you Google around, or even just put in, like I said, a city, Google Idaho, Boise, Idaho population growth, and world population will be one of the top sites that comes up. Let me see here. Captain Trace says not even inspection contingency. Sometimes no, because we look at the property and we come up with our estimate of what we need to rehab it or spend on it or whatever, and our offer already factors not only that in, but the fact that we have contingency built in, right? So yeah, okay, so let's say we close, oh man, the air conditioner needs to be replaced. Well, we already have a bit cushion built in case that happens. That's part of how you get below market offers accepted is saying, hey, look, my price is low, but this is a guaranteed thing, right? No contingencies. And so you're building that in. You're getting a great deal by not having that inspection contingency. Now, that doesn't mean that no one's looked at it. It just might mean that we look at it, typically we look at it before we made the offer or something like that, right? So when we say no inspection contingency, what that means is we're not going to send like a home inspector over to nitpick the thing and come back and say, oh, give us a credit because the light bulbs are broken, anything like that. That's largely what it comes down to. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Thank you. Some AGP on Instagram posted, I found it worldpopulationreview.com. So that's what it was. It's worldpopulationreview.com. Thank you so much for backing me up on that one. All right. Like I said, I'm going to remember it now. So next time somebody asks. All right. I want to hop over to Facebook, make sure we pick up some of those questions. So I appreciate you guys posting over here too. What's the most valuable thing? Jeremy Lane asks, what's the most valuable thing you've learned that you wish you knew when you first started? Oof. I don't know if there's a single most valuable thing, so I'm just going to give you a handful that come to mind. Number one, don't buy in low income, high crime areas. Those two things are not a good combination. It's going to make it very difficult for you to make your property a financial success, and it's going to definitely increase the headache factor. So I do not buy in low income, high crime areas. In fact, when I look back at the property, when I think of the properties that gave me the most gray hair, it was we bought in places that had both low income and moderate to high crime. So I'd say that's probably definitely one of the most valuable things I learned is those properties look great on a spreadsheet, but the spreadsheet's not reality. I just wouldn't buy in those areas. Two, when getting started, definitely raise more money than you think you need, right? If you're doing a deal and you need $300,000, get commitments from investors for 500, right? Once you've got a track record and you've got a good group of investors that follows you, you won't need to do that. You'll just say, hey, I need 300 and you'll get 300, right? But in the beginning, lots of people will be like, oh yeah, that sounds great. But then when it comes time to actually write that check or send that wire, people will get cold feet, or they'll be like, oh shoot, I just bought a condo for my grandma or whatever. They're not going to have the money, or the money doesn't show up. So in the beginning, over raised. And then another thing I would that's critical when you get that, all, whether you're just starting or you've done 10,000 units, make sure you go into a deal well capitalized. What does that mean? That means that you are factoring in plenty of reserves in case something goes wrong, right? You have high vacancy, the roofs need to be replaced unexpectedly, whatever. Make sure you go in well capitalized. Do not plan on doing repairs from cash flow ever. That is one of the biggest things I see. That's a big mistake I see people make that often leads to a downward spiral, and then you become the distressed seller that everybody's looking for. So those are some of the things that I would say are critical lessons, especially getting started. So, all right. Let me see here. I want to, this one sounds good right here. All right, Pappy on Instagram. Some good questions. What are the benefits of buying off market versus on market? Something about rolling closing costs into the loan. I don't think buying off market or on market affects being able to roll closing costs into the loan. I would say in general, buying off market is better simply because you're typically not in as a competitive environment, right? If it's listed or if it's on market, then that by definition means it's being marketed and tons of people are seeing it. So you're gonna have lots of competition. Whereas if you develop a relationship with a realtor or a broker or whatever, and they just say, hey, I talked to the seller, I think this is a great deal. This deal is a great match for you. And hopefully you can just put something together without a bidding war, right? Or if you go out and you talk to that owner and potential seller yourself, again, even better, right? Now you can negotiate one-on-one. You can put together a deal that's fair and works for both of you, but you're not having 87 people, trying to outbid you. So I definitely, that doesn't mean don't look at listed properties, because you can still buy and get a decent deal on listed property, but off market does tend to have the benefits of a little bit better pricing and often better terms, right? If you're just talking one-on-one with a seller, you can say, well, you can talk about things like seller financing or seller carries, or doing certain repairs. There's all kinds of creative options there. All right, let's see. We got Kim Sharp on Facebook. And remember, everyone, let us know where you're coming in from. Kim asks, would you buy a distressed large vacant multi-unit in an opportunity zone or an already cash flowing multi-unit that doesn't need as much work? The answer to that really depends on your expertise and appetite for risk. For me personally, I would probably go with the already cash flowing one that doesn't need as much work. And as long as I feel like there's some upside to it and it's in a good market. And I would be careful with the opportunity zones because, for those of you who don't know what the deal is with the opportunity zones, is the legislation that was passed a couple of years ago. They designated certain zones called opportunity zones that generally they're low income or distressed areas where if you follow certain rules and invest there, you basically pay like zero taxes for 10 years or zero, no capital gains or any of that. Well, that's obviously a good benefit, right? The problem is not all, but many of those opportunity zones are just bad areas that you don't want to invest in, right? And so a mistake some people are making is they're letting the tail wag the dog. And what I mean by that is they're doing investments that don't make sense just because they want to get tax benefits, right? And that can lead to serious problems. So generally speaking, an opportunity zone is not a market that would qualify for what we look for. Doesn't mean it can't be done, doesn't mean it can't make a lot of money. It's just not what we look for. We generally have found the best success with properties that cash flow to some degree or make sense today, but still have a lot of upside, right? We can do some renovations, we can increase rents. It's in an area with growing population and all of that. So Kim, for us, we would probably go with your second option of the one that already cash flows. Now, if there was a vacant multifamily unit property in a strong submarket, and had a good reason for being vacant, would we look at that? Yes. In fact, I want to give a shout out to Chris. He's in our multifamily mastermind. He's doing a deal where in Memphis where it's 100% vacant, at which we're like, wow, okay, that sounds scary. What happened? Well, it was owned by a church, and the church kept really good care of it, so it's actually in good condition, which is rare for vacant properties. And the church just moved everybody out, right? So it was full, and then the church said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore, and left, and boom, it's vacant. Well, that it's not because the market's bad. It's not because the property's a piece of crap. It's just because the owner said, all right, we're out of here. And he's going to come in and do a little bit of renovation, but just fill that thing up. And the submarket that it's in is actually pretty strong. It's not an opportunity zone, but it's got good median income and all that. And really, it's an amazing deal. So there's a lot of different aspects to consider. That's not an opportunity zone, but to me, it's a great deal. It's 100% vacant, right? So yeah, I just said I prefer cash flowing properties, but that deal that he found is an awesome deal, and I would do it. So again, there's a lot of factors at play, but good question. So, and Kim's from Indianapolis, Indiana. I don't invest in that market, but I hear a lot of good things about it, and that people are having a lot of success there. So, all right, wow, we've only got about 5 minutes left, so let's see if we can knock off a few more questions. If you've been holding on to your questions, now's the time to do it. We got Maury Ellis from Lehigh, Utah. Hey, just drove through there twice last weekend, once on the way up and once on the way back down. Let's see, we got somebody from Houston. Hope your pipes haven't exploded and your heat is working. Let me see here. All right, Hawaii. And let me see here. All right, Serena Casey Bales says, we are seeing no inspection contingencies here. Don't know what market you're in, but yeah, that's pretty common. And then Swaff Piece on Instagram asks, should we be nervous about investing in fast-growing but currently smaller cities like Buckeye, Arizona? Just moved here and looking to start investing either here or in Phoenix. All right, well, first, let me say, in my opinion, you should always be just a little bit nervous. because the day that you become overconfident is the day that you possibly make an expensive mistake, right? So, we've done a couple thousand units. Every time I go under contract, I'll the next few nights I'll wake up at 3 in the morning and be like, oh crap, did we look at this, right? And then I go and I get up and, oh yeah, we did. It's fine, right? So you should always have a little bit of nervousness, not to hold you back, just so you don't get overconfident, because that's when you make mistakes. But to really try to address your question, I would look at the reason that the market is fast growing, right? And you mentioned fast growing smaller cities. Candidly, when I look back at our portfolio, many of the best performing deals were the ones that were in tertiary, which means smaller markets that were fast growing, and we were able to get in kind of before they got on everybody's radar and do very well. So, in my experience, the success of multifamily isn't really dependent on the size of the market, as long as there's not too much supply. It's more based on, how affordable are your units, and how quickly is that, is the area growing, and will that growth continue, right? You want to make sure that the growth isn't something that's, just transitory and is going to go away after you buy your property. So good question. Let me see if we can squeeze in maybe one more. Yes, worldpopulationreview.com. Let's see here. We'll keep on rolling. We got some people posting in Russian. Too bad I can't read that. Let me see here. We got aloha from Maui. All right, K4D Liz on Instagram. So, do you set up a separate fund for repairs and maintenance on a rental property? Good question. I think this gets back to our discussion earlier about reserves and coming in well capitalized. Yes, Timothy, Google Translate. I don't think I can do that live on Instagram, but who knows, maybe. So yes, we do. We set up. Now, if I was just buying a single family rental, I probably wouldn't. But if you're looking at, a 10-unit apartment complex or something like that, whenever we always set up 4 accounts, right? We set up one account for just day-to-day operations. The second is repairs and capital expenses. And then the third is just general reserves, kind of like emergency rainy day fund. And then the fourth, we set up for investor distributions. Now, if you don't have investors and you're not making distributions, then you don't need that fourth account. But yeah, I would, if you're getting more than a couple of units, I would set up separate accounts. And let me see if we can squeeze in one more here. Let's see. I'm going to take. Hello, Irish Invest from San Jose, California. Hello. All right, let me see. We've got. Andrew Fishman, you're welcome. He says thanks for doing this Q&A, and thank you from Dallas. And then Poppy asks, what's your Instagram handle? Vantage Point Acquisitions. And let me see here if we got one more question that we can do pretty quickly. All right. And then we are novation agreements a good type of investment contracts? You know what, K4? I'm not sure what a novation agreement is. Maybe that's just a typo and I'm missing it. But if you have a chance, you want to go ahead and repost that. And let's see, we've got. Oh, here we go. Obadiah asks, have you bought any foreclosures or pre-foreclosures he's asking on Instagram. If so, any advice for someone that hasn't done this? That's how we got started, buying foreclosures and pre-foreclosures. It's a difficult business, especially if you're working directly with the homeowners, because a lot of times they're stressed out and not happy to talk to strangers about their financial problems. But if you can connect with people well and have thick skin, or can develop thick skin, it can be a great way to get great deals and help people out. I will say, right now, there's not a whole lot of foreclosures or pre-foreclosures because the lenders are giving people forbearances, meaning that they don't have to, if they're having trouble, they can just not pay their mortgage right now, and then the lenders are going to figure it out later. So that might be a good source of deals down in the future. It isn't that great of a source of deals right now. So, all right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. It's 5 o'clock on the East Coast, so hope all of you can go take some time off and enjoy what looks like to be a cold, snowy weekend. And thank you everybody for joining. I love talking with you all. Hopefully this helped and answered some of your questions. We'll be back on Bigger Pockets probably in a couple of months here. We're changing up the schedule, so when we come back, we'll probably be on actually a little bit more frequently, so that'll be fun. And in the meantime, you can connect with me on Bigger Pockets. I mentioned my Instagram handle, Vantage Point Acquisitions. Our website's the same name. And go out, and it is an uncertain market, but that doesn't mean it's a bad market. If you hold real estate long enough, it is almost always a good investment. So go out there, get educated, go find some deals, go find some partners, and start building up your real estate empire. Have a great weekend. Talk to you again soon.